Hello and welcome to the Memorial Day 2025 edition of Virginia Wine and Song. It is Memorial Day, Monday, May 26th, 2025. Hopefully people are enjoying the wineries in Virginia this weekend. There are probably quite a few that are open, but there are probably quite a few that are closed also because it is a national holiday. Anyway, today we're going to talk about a Virginia wine. And again, I'm going to match it with an album that I wouldn't call this particular choice underrated or overlooked because it's a pretty well-known album for people who are really into music, especially music from the classic era, which once again I will define as 1964 to 1999. Maybe 2000, 2001, if I want to throw that decade a bone. But that's what I define as the classic era of pop or rock or just enjoyable music, and everybody's got their own definition. But anyway, I'm going to start with talking about a Virginia wine, and then I'm going to morph into talking about an album that I think would go really well with this wine. And of course, music in general goes well with any wine. But this particular wine is a summer wine, kind of a summery wine, because we're going to launch into summer now. And the winery I'm going to talk about today is actually located in Northern Virginia. Once again, I'm trying to branch out and talk about wineries in other places besides the Shenandoah Valley where I live. So I'm going to talk about Northern Virginia, and this winery is in a little town called Berryville, Virginia, which is in Clark County, which is between Winchester and Leesburg, or Winchester and Purcellville, Berryville. And the name of the winery is Veramar, and this is one of the original Virginia wineries. I think this winery has been open since at least the early 2000s, maybe even earlier. I can actually look it up. I have their website up on the page right now, and let's see what it says here. Our story, just to give you an exact date of when they opened. Okay, they bought the 1990s. Okay, 2000. So it looks like they started they were open for the public beginning in 2001, 2002. And that sounds about right, because that's around the time I started going to this winery. Like I said, one of the original Virginia wineries. And they're located right off of Route 7 on the way to Winchester. Like I said, near Berryville, the town of Berryville. A very easy drive over to Veramar Winery. From anywhere in Northern Virginia. You can get there, pretty quickly, depending on the traffic on Route 7. But anyway, you do feel like you're getting away from it all. This is another one of those wineries that, even though it's not too far, relatively speaking, from the Washington, D.C. area, it's very scenic, and you see the rolling countryside and rolling hills, and you can see the mountains in the background. It's a very enjoyable getaway for a weekend day or just vacation. Their wines here are pretty much standard fare for Virginia. This happens to be a rosé, which I'll talk about in a moment, but Sauvignon Blanc, Cab Franc, Vidal Blanc, Norton. They actually have a Norton. Probably one of their standard wines, and I remember this wine going way back to 2002 and 2003 when I first started doing wineries in Virginia. Rooster Red, which is a table red they have, very easy drinking. It goes well with pretty much anything you can imagine. It's a table red, so it's a varietal. But this one happens to be a rosé. I'm going to talk about a rosé, or rosés in general. I think I've mentioned this in previous installments of Virginia Wine and Song. But the Virginia wines, the Virginia rosés, are usually dry or off-dry. They are not Kool-Aid. They are not high C or Hawaiian punch. They don't have that sweetness that a lot of people may equate with rosés. Back in the day, before my time actually, when kids were in college in the 60s and the 70s, cheap red rosé was a favorite to get drunk with, like Boone's Farm and that kind of stuff. Although I think Boone's Farm was fruit wine, but who knows? They may have had a regular grape wine as well. But they were mostly the pink stuff, the pink wine, which is rosé. The rosés that are in Virginia are dry or off dry, and you can chill them, and they work really, really well in the summer, especially if you're on a hot day. You don't want to really drink a heavy red, of course, on a hot day, and you may want to drink a white, but if you want something different besides a white, go with the rosé. This goes really, really well with poultry, any kind of poultry dish you can imagine. It goes really well with ham and pork dishes. It goes well with Asian spicy dishes. It's a very versatile wine. You can even have it with spaghetti if you want. I mean, it's rosé is easy drinking stuff. And this, if I chilled this and I started drinking it, it would be very difficult for me to not drink it all because it's so. The rosés in Virginia are delicious, I think. So Verramar, they're one of 3 wineries owned by the same family that happen to be in the Winchester and Loudoun County and Clark County area. The other 2 wineries are Bogarty Winery, which is located right off of Route 7 in Purcellville. If you're going towards Winchester on Route 7, you go up a hill a little bit, and on the right-hand side, there's a little country store there. Right next to that is Bogarty Winery. Bogarty Winery does a different set of wines than Verramar, but they're very, very good. And the other winery that this particular family owns is, I'm drawing a blank on it right now, James Charles. I knew it was named after a person. James Charles Winery, which is south of Winchester. So they're all in the same proximity, and I think they do share the grapes amongst each other. But I think Verramar is the first winery in that family to open. Like I said, they opened to the public in 2001, 2002. And they have an expansive vineyard. Like I said, you have to drive off of Route 7. You have to drive maybe about a mile or about 2 miles on a road called Quarry Road. So there must be a quarry back there somewhere, or an old quarry. And you hit Verramar. Anyway, you can't miss. It's another favorite. Their wines are actually pretty well priced. They haven't raised their prices that much compared to a lot of other wineries in Loudoun County. So what goes well with Verramar? What goes well with rosé? I had a hard time trying to find a connection between. I like to find it somewhat, even if it's a really abstract connection between the wine and the vineyard, or the wine and the music. I try to find some sort of weird connection. I couldn't find one this time, so I decided, okay, well, I'm going to pick an album that was produced by a guy who just passed away on Christmas Day last year. Christmas Day 2024, we lost a producer named Richard Perry. Richard Perry was really well known in the music industry as a producer for bands like the Pointer Sisters. He actually he turned the Pointer Sisters into more of a mainstream pop act. Previously, prior to like 1974 or 75, the Pointer Sisters were known for kind of big band type music, and Richard Perry kind of transformed them into this first disco band, and then they became a big, pop R&B act in the 80s. But the album I'm going to talk about is probably his masterpiece as a producer. And of course, anybody who has any kind of passing interest in music will probably know that I'm talking about Harry Nilsson and Nilsson Schmilsson. And again, I'm doing this primarily as a tribute to Mr. Richard Perry, and I'm sure he would approve of this wine. Harry Nilsson passed away, I think, in 1992 or 1993. Harry Nilsson was a hard partying guy. He had an angelic voice. You can read all about him on Wikipedia. There's been a great documentary made about him. But this is a masterpiece. This is his best album he did with producer Richard Perry. It came out in 1971, and it's almost like it's hard to describe how good this album is. If you're a vocalist, if you're a musician or a vocalist in particular, you will be so amazed at the range that Harry Nilsson has with his voice. And this album, even though Harry Nilsson was a huge smoker, he was a hard partier, he was an alcoholic, I think he did drugs. I know he did cocaine. He may have done harder drugs than that. He lived life in a fast lane, to quote a song. But he was able to suspend all of that to record this album with Richard Perry, and it ended up winning a lot of Grammys. This album, the Beach Boys love this album. The Beatles, or the remaining Beatles, even though they had broken up by the time this album came out, all of them, John Lennon especially and Ringo, loved this album. Anybody who loves music loves Nilsson Schmilsson, especially, this album in particular, but Harry Nilsson in general. And this is actually, I have this sealed still. This is a original master recording that's been repressed on heavy gram vinyl. It's a limited edition for Mobile Fidelity, MoFi, Mobile Fidelity, and I have pressing number 3,302. And I think they were only going to press 5,000 of these, and then they ceased production. Now, whenever I hear about that, I'm skeptical because sometimes they say that, and then they end up pressing another batch. So I don't buy these for collecting purposes. I buy them because I want to enjoy them. That said, I haven't broken the seal to listen to this yet, mainly because I don't have a really great turntable. I'm still waiting to get a decent turntable, and I don't want to play this on a not so great turntable. I have a turntable right now, but it's not really that great. So I'm saving this for a good turntable. But in the meantime, I also bought the SACD. MoFi put out the SACD of the same album, and of course I broke the seal on this because I wanted to listen to this. As far as the songs you may recognize, probably the song that everybody knows from this album is Coconut, which was a top 10 hit, and it's been featured in numerous movies. Put the lime in the coconut, you drink it all up. You've heard the song. I think it was used in an animated movie. I don't know which one, but my knowledge of Disney and animated movies is really not that great. But I know it's been featured in a couple of animated movies. Let me pull it up here. Harry Nilsson, Coconut. The other movie it was used in, which I'm a little more familiar with, was Reservoir Dogs. But what movie is the song Coconut in? Of course, I can't find it. I know it was used in some song, some movie. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. You can look it up yourself. You know the song. The other big song from this album is Without You, which was actually a cover of a Badfinger song. It's a great ballad, and his voice just soars in that. Jump Into the Fire, which is a song that almost, you listen to that song and you feel like you're on cocaine. Harry was probably on cocaine when he recorded that. It's a song that just hits you over the head with a ton of bricks. It's not a heavy metal song. It's not a hard rock song. It's just a driving pop epic. And it goes on. It's like a 7-minute opus, and it was used quite effectively in a key sequence in Goodfellas, where Ray Liotta's character thinks he's being followed by a helicopter, and he's coked up on cocaine, and they're playing Jump Into the Fire by Harry Nilsson in that sequence, and it's a perfect song for that. So if you've seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, Richard Perry produced this. I think he produced one more album with Harry Nilsson, and then they parted ways because Harry was just too much of a partier, and Richard Perry actually thought Harry had a death wish in a weird way. It's all explained in the documentary they made about him. So I want to tribute. I just found out Richard Perry passed away on Christmas Day. They didn't really talk about it unless you pay attention to the music blogs. I do, but not the really down and dirty music blogs. You have to really be an audiophile and a music fanatic to know about Richard Perry and watch the news about his passing. Anyway, he passed on Christmas Day last year. So I want to enjoy this Vera Mar wine. I wish Harry had a song called Vera. That probably would work well with this, but we'll just make do with Vera Mar Winery and Rosé from Vera Mar and Harry Nilsson's Nilsson Schmilsson album. So get them while they're hot, because they're not going to be in production probably. Well, they may or may not. You just never know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you next time.